Test them. Test their reaction and their knowledge. If they know, discuss it with them. I told him, men at a certain age can drink, but it doesn't mean that they have to drink or overdo it.
Yeah.
So if you're organized and focused in your life, life will give you things. But if you mess up in this life, life will take away those things. You'll have a nice house, you'll have a nice car, you'll have a nice whatever. Ukiblanda, life will take them away from you, and it will be more unkind than your parents taking these things from you. So these little lessons you have when you're at home, these are lessons as to how life will treat you.
Great to be back. Another wonderful Friday to come and engage with you in our space, to come and speak about issues that are affecting us, the boys. Happy to be here. It's warm. I don't know if the weather is changing. It's unpredictable. It's been hot and cold, but the weatherman will say. Welcome back to Boys Let's Chat, Auntie Riz Open Mic. I've been reading the comments and happy that we're interacting. Please continue to subscribe, to like, to share. The comments are coming in, the emails are coming in. I hope you've loved and related to the previous episodes. We continue to strive to share with you what is relevant to you, the boys. I know last week we spoke about, or rather, we spoke to the parents. I hope that resonated. Again, we have received a lot of emails on topics to speak about. We are aligning our guests, and we definitely shall come back and share with you. So I'm happy. This is my safe space. I just like being here because it's, I think, the only place that lets me be Auntie Ri. Thank you for stopping me in the streets as well, calling me out. I'm happy. And I'm grateful. And more than that, I'm happy that the conversations that we're having are impactful and to an extent are changing your life for the better. Because we have said we just want the boys to level up, to take the spaces that is rightfully theirs. We're happy where the girls are. And if we can level up these boys, then we'd be reaching our objective. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure today to introduce to you our guest. And just to give you a brief of who he is, he's a versatile artist, he's a seasoned ICT professional, he's a dedicated family man. From directing plays at 17 to managing territories across 50 countries, he's in the tech industry. He's not only a successful entrepreneur in an IT firm, but other people call him Murua Muziki on stage. He's currently pursuing an MBA. He's a father of 2 teenage sons. So his hands are full. He's doing everything, as you can see. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Steve Murua. Steve, please welcome to the show. Okay. And as I always say, boys, let's chat.
Yes.
And just an icebreaker. Mm-hmm. You wear so many hats, even before I get into what we want to talk about today. I get so overwhelmed, Steve.
Yes.
I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I work. By the time I get home, I'm already here. And then I have a new role. I'm Auntie Ri. Mm-hmm. It's so much. But what they usually say, it's a lot easier for a woman than it is for a man. So just with all this that you do, you're a performer, you're in the tech space, you are an entrepreneur, sales job are crazy, been there, done that, you're a father. I'm just curious. In all these times, and as a father now especially, what is that one moment that brought you so much laughter with your boys? A most recent thing that perhaps detoxes you of, all those other big things.
Well, now my boys, I think, as I was telling you earlier, when you worry about what your children might do, you're like, I'm worried my children might be a bit wild this way or that way. I think whatever my children see with me, they are the ones who sometimes, because I find that they've toned it down.
Yeah.
So I would say, for me, we just live. And I think the main thing is that we tend to enjoy each other's company. But, I think the thing for being a father, you can either be that father, the capital F, you can be that dad who makes the effort to be relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we have, at least with my boys. So we have a lot of fun. It's never that serious.
Yeah.
But when the need is there for things to get done, for things to be agreed on, that one we do. No, it's fun. It's fun.
If I spoke to your son today, in his eyes, what kind of a father do you think you are?
I think they think I'm a fun person because, okay, like you said, I do all these things.
Yeah.
So you find that there was a time all their friends were actually following me on Instagram. Actually, one time I remember there was a commercial I'd done. So they're busy playing games, and then one of their friends goes like, "Oh, by the way, your dad is in another advert for I won't mention the brand, but your dad is in another." So my son is like, "Yes, it's very casual."
Yeah.
It's like these things don't impress them anymore. But I think the one thing which I hope they get from me is that it is possible to live a life which has got a lot of things. Because sometimes, we tunajifungia sana. We say, I am this, and we die with it and all that. But I just want to show them that life is possible to live all these things.
Yeah.
And squeeze the most out of life.
I guess. Yeah. Seeing as you're in the tech space, and we are living in these modern times, do you sometimes feel the need to manage their time on the gadgets? Or is it at will? Are your children in primary or in high school?
All right, now one is in junior secondary, so he's in grade 7, and the other one is in Form 1. So, as you know, the transition this year.
Yeah.
So one to high school, one to JSS in a new school. So typically what I do with them is that we start the year by agreeing on what we're going to do. So we sat down, we agreed, and I told them, look, you've just come out of a season where there was a lot of focus because we're doing certain exams. And I told them, look, you're going to have to balance it out now. Because for me, the way I look at it, there'll come a time when that boy will be left alone in his house or in his room. He'll have access to all these devices, but he'll still have to work, he'll have to do all those things. And I don't think the best time to teach him how to balance this is when he's an adult. So we agreed. And what we do nowadays, of course, they're kids. Sometimes they have to bring them back.
Yeah.
But we agree, like, for example, during the term, we go to school. When we come back, because I pick and drop them. When we get home, first thing, freshen up, get in there, put at least 1 hour of good, honest work.
Yeah.
Then after that, you're able to have your own time.
Yeah.
And normally that is during the term. I think we had exams recently. When it comes to exams, I tell them, look, now take a break from the devices, give it more focus. But you see, when it's consistent effort through the term, they don't have to spend so much time on this. But I feel it is important to prepare them. That is the way.
So do you allow them to? Are there certain restrictions when in terms of content? Are these things you are open to discuss with them? No, I'd rather you don't go into these sites. I don't like TikTok, for example, or I'm okay with it as long as whatever you're viewing or the content is okay. Are these conversations you have ordinarily? Yes. Also, on the same note, do they sometimes come to you and with the phone and like, Dad, look at this, what's your thoughts, what's your comment about it?
No, the thing I've learned is that if you want them to behave a certain way, it will come from how you behave. Like I've said, I have some videos out there which are nuts. So I don't think there's much they'll see which is more wild than what I've put out there.
Yeah.
But typically, if you want to, this is my approach. If you want your child to get used to come to show you stuff, you have to be often going to show your child stuff. Show him something. Yeah. Because like the two guys I have, they have very different interests. Yeah. The older one likes certain things, the younger one likes certain things. So I know if I find a practical example, my older one is crazy about anime. Okay, the younger one likes music and movies. And if you mix up their interests, one is not interested in what the other one wants. So if, let's say, I'm on social media and I find something which is cool for anime, I'll send it to the older one, tell me, check this out, you come and show him. Yeah. And sure enough, if you keep doing that, they tend to do what you do. Yeah. So what they do tends to mirror what I do for them. And we do share a lot.
Sometimes parents direct their kids and to what they want the children to do, and especially on education. Like I'd like you to be a lawyer, so put your thoughts around being a lawyer. I want you to be a teacher. and maybe the child's interest is something totally different. And because your children are in that age, and if the children who are listening today are of the same age, how flexible should parents be, or how flexible are you to the children in allowing them space to select or be what they want to be? Of course, I think fundamentally we're in agreement that education is important.
It's very important.
But now the choice of career thereafter, do you dictate?
I think the issue, like I've said, what they see you do is what works for them. Because I'm doing masters, so the parents both at master's level. So for them, it doesn't become a difficult discussion. You tell them it's a natural progression. When it comes, I mean, like earlier this year, I was tempted because I have one boy who's a strong guy. So I was telling him, I want you to take rugby, for example.
Yeah.
And the guy rebelled. He was like, why do you want me to do this? Eventually, later, I thought, and I was like, okay, as long as it's a sport, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
He said basketball. I told him, fine, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. Of course, I had my own reasons, because there are reasons why I think it is better to spend time in a rugby team, looking at the future, because there's things I see, I see the guys who are in rugby. I was never in rugby, but those guys maintain their networks and whatever, and they go far. Basketball, not so much. That's what I was thinking. But I had to look at it and say, I can't force certain ideas on them. And similarly, around education, my approach has always been this. I always try and sort of plant the seed early. Because I tell them, look, whatever you want to do, nothing is impossible. I tell them, look, we are sitting here. We have put in a day at work. Maybe there's a day or a weekend when you'll go see me. I'm on a TV show or something. We might chill. You'll see an advert with me on it. So I tell them, it's possible to balance all these things. And I'm very frank. I tell them, there are things which you may do for an income. Because I tell them again, if as a man, you're not going to be providing, because maybe you're chasing certain dreams, it may not be the kindest thing to children you may have. So I tell them, find a way to balance whatever you like doing with whatever you need to do. And at least, again, they see me doing that. So I think it becomes an easier discussion.
Yeah.
It becomes an easier discussion because you're practicing what you preach. So they'll say, okay, fine. I can do this. Tell them, do it at this time. Maybe you like doing that. I tell them, there's the evening, there's the weekend, there's all this time. So jipange. When you plan your own time, everything sort of you can squeeze.
How do you plan your own time? How do you now, and specifically in making time for them? Because parents are overwhelmed. Lately, we are out there, we are grinding, we are chasing numbers, we are doing things that we want to do for fun, because after all, at the end of the day, you also want to do something that you like. But you have little humans that look up to you. And our days only have 24 hours. How do you make time for them? Is it deliberate? Do you purpose to spend time with them, to bond, to be with them?
I think for me, okay, luckily for now, I'm an entrepreneur, which means my time is my own. But it's easy. Okay, like when I started the year, even in my room, I have a whiteboard with my priorities. And when the kids come in, they see my priorities. Of course, at the top, you'll just put family as your first priority. Yeah. So based on that, I tend to build my day or my week around that. So, for example, when my kids go to school, they have to be in school by 7, thereabout. Now, at our age, unfortunately, we have to put in a bit of effort in terms of fitness and all that.
Yeah.
And I know if I come in and try and do that after work, I won't manage it because I have to pick the same guys and bring them back. So if the need is there, you'll find I might plan a day to start at 3. You start at 3. If you're going to do your runs, you do them at 3. You come back 4:30. You prepare 5. You wake up everyone 5:30. We have breakfast. We're normally in school by 6:30 to avoid traffic. I'm in the office by 7. Put in a full day's work. So if it's a day they're leaving early, you leave at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
It's a day you're leaving late, you leave at 4 or 5. But the whole thing is, I typically say, what am I not willing to move? If they have to be there at this time and they'll be picked at this time, those are points I don't move, then I build everything else around it. And it's sort of, I think if you purpose to do something, it sort of falls into place.
Yeah. They say it's harder to deal with boys than it is with girls, and you're a father of boys. And I just wanted to pick your brain. Boys tend to have a mind of their own, or at least at that age, they're beginning to have a mind of their own. And there'd usually be conflict you know, in thought, in how you think and how they think, and do you allow them the space, or is it healthy to allow them, in your opinion, to allow them the space to think in the way they want to think, or do you allow your boys and your parents be that flexible to allowing them to do what they, not necessarily everything, but within the spectrum of discipline?
I normally look at it in terms of, you know, by the time they're in their teenage years, a lot of input is already in their minds. That is a person who I think is already, you know, 60% formed. Because whatever input you're putting in, you put in on their children, whether consciously or unconsciously, you pumped it into them. So, like for mine, do we have me having to assert myself so much? Not really. Because when they mess up, typically I will, even if I get mad, I will explain to them why. Because I think sometimes we find that as a parent you might tell them, don't do that. And you don't explain the why. And sometimes you might go back and think and realize maybe there's something in your mind that is forcing you to behave that way. You may not always be reasonable. So I never have a problem if I feel that I've done something wrong. I don't think it is such a big deal to come and ask, okay, did we think we were doing the right thing? Because I always look at it in terms of, if I don't teach them how to apologize, how to make amends, eventually you just build someone who's very toxic. But as long as you take the time, because even if they do wrong and you're mad, then you go and think and then you come back and tell them, okay, I was mad because of this and this and this. Typically, they respond well, as long as they understand the why. And you don't fight so much after that. But as long as they understand, because, you know, boys tend to be, okay, at least mine, are very logical creatures. If you explain to them why this should not be, they tend to absorb it with the best of intentions.
And that's in a very good case scenario. Of course, there's also boys who are rebellious, and not because they're bad boys, it's because it's at the stage that they are in. It could be circumstantially, perhaps the environment they're growing in, it could be toxic, and it has nothing to do with them as such. And for those boys who are listening to us, Steve, what would be the parents' take? I mean, what should the parents do to hold the hands? Because they can be rebellious. And sometimes parents fail to know how to handle this. So this may not necessarily be yours, but in the ones who don't have that softer space where it allows them to just be them.
I think, you know, the headache we have sometimes, you look at this child who is there and you already have a very nice idea of what you want them to end up as. Probably what you think may work in this world, or probably what you wish you had done for yourself. And then we put all that pressure onto this guy. And maybe the guy wants to be a DJ, you want him to be a doctor. Napo, that is where heads butter. I really think in today's world, we're dealing with a different breed of children. Our days, ungechapwa, you just take it like a champ and say, nilichapwa, and you move on. But for these guys now, you know, they look for deeper reasons. Is it that my dad doesn't like me, my mom doesn't believe in me, then they go on TikTok, social media with their friends, and they come back with a lot of self-doubt and whatever. So I think for parents out there who are, you know, butting heads with these guys, the first thing is that you really need to start treating that person like someone who reasons. Because these kids have a lot of information. They have information sometimes even we don't have. They have access to so many sources of knowledge. And I think if we would take our time just to sit and understand them. Because, like, for example, I'll give you a practical example. There was a time my kids used to go on a PlayStation, and they used to say they're on tournaments, and I used to say, what nonsense is this? Then they're talking about tournaments. Then I went to the US, and I found a place where, you see the way the professional basketball teams, professional, do you know there's a professional gaming league?
Wow.
I kid you not. Because I was in Washington and I found the place. These guys who own Washington, there's a women's basketball team, there's a hockey team.
So is it online?
Yes. And these kids are earning $100,000. And these are kids who are just like 15, 16, 17, 18. Like that gap between high school and college. These kids are earning, and the ones who are like the top ones are earning hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you see, this is something my kids were trying to explain to me. But me, sitting here in Kenya with my small brain, I couldn't figure it. So I sat down and I said, you know, sometimes these guys, they can teach us something.
Yeah.
But sometimes we need to listen.
Yeah.
We need to balance it out and then give them some feedback. Because I was telling them, you know what, this is something people are making money without there, but of course you balance it. To tell them now, you know, maybe one day you might be in the States, maybe you might be doing your studies and then you need to earn some money. So yeah, this is not a terrible thing, but do it within this time and this time. As long as you give and take, they're reasonable.
So dialogue and compromise,
dialogue
I
is
believe.
everything. And sometimes let them win. You know, if you're living a life where every day you are losing, even you become resentful, sometimes let them win. Some wins are not that big.
Ambia some fathers up.
Because
his story, I'm not being hard on the fathers, but you know, it cannot continuously be a no. I think maybe if they hear it from a father, and it doesn't necessarily it's negating your role or authority, but I think it's good to weigh some things sometimes. I raised boys in this house, and the things that are no for me. No compromise.
Yeah.
But lately there's all this long hair kind of stuff that goes on here.
That was normal, isn't it? I remember even, you know, I don't have hair now, but there was a time hair was, you know, for them, how do I put it? For them, something like that is such a big deal. You're like, hair is not the end of the world, but for them at that age, it is such a big deal. Yeah. So sometimes you look and you say, you know what, we'll balance it out. Yeah. I want to do this. Sometimes you tell them this one, maybe during the holidays you can do it. Because I'll tell them, even me when I was your age in holidays, sometimes we'll pick up peroxide, the hair was blonde. I tell them, I've done these things. So I tell them, but it's a question of when. Because I always look at it in terms of, you need to balance out how this guy will live.
I think it's in the balancing out. Parenting is, there's no manual, there's no script. I think it's in the balancing out. And even for me, when I talk about the hair story, you know, sometimes I look at it and my kids will actually tell you that mommy will say, usually I tell them I pick my battles, and hair is not one of them. So if you think you want to wake up and not comb it, I'm okay, just brush your teeth, for example, you know. So the things you pick and decide, because as you rightfully put it, if a parent continuously says no to everything a child wants, then you're building
serious resentment.
Yes.
And again, how can you wake up and lose every day?
Yeah.
And every day you want to do this? No. Fanya hivi. And I think for many of us, if you try and understand why you're doing that, maybe where you came from, you're under the same kind of, do what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And in that generation, we could accept it, but now, these are people who may know better.
So just on that issue of generation, do you think we parents, and for those who are listening, do you think it's high time parents slightly adjusted to the now, as of, you know, in relation to how we were raised or how they were raised back then, to avert? Look, I'll tell you, right now we are dealing with a lot of mental issues, and most of which, from the young boys, most of which stem from undue pressure, you know, resentment from families, absentee parentism, for example. And therefore, can we try to parent a little different? And in your opinion, what can parents do just to make it a little more bearable for these boys, and not let them wasikwe treated vile sisi tulikuwa raised back in the day?
I would say the first thing, and since we're talking about boys, I mean, I also have boys. The first thing I believe is that fathers need to be more engaged. You need to be engaged, because the damage that happens in your child's life does not happen, you know, over 3 months. You know, it is what he was thinking this morning, and then tomorrow morning, and with time, if you're not in the middle of whatever he's doing, with time it grows into something. So I would say, like, for fathers, first of all, let's be more present there. Because this was something I've always believed. You know, for a mother and a son, it is a very natural friendship. From day one. From the day you are the same person to being different people, but you never ever different. You're sort of the same person. You're always close. But for a father, unfortunately, you have to earn it. And you have to work for it. You have to be invested. So I would say, first of all, fathers need to be very deliberately there. Because, like, for me, what I do, I have kids in the house who, they're that age where even when they're in the house, they're hiding. You just enter at least, they disappear. You're like, am I alone here? But the thing is, when we're going to school, I know there's no distractions. So we leave. When we come back, we're together. And even there was a time they were complaining, why can't we use, like the expressway? I told them, why am I using the expressway when this is the time when I have it to myself?
To speak to you, yes.
And they'll always tell you something you didn't know. Mtu ataka aguzwe mahali akwambia, by the way, there was this or there was that. So I think we need to try and steal those moments, because I think that is where we learn the most. But on top of that, when we're talking about preparing our kids, this might be a bit controversial, but I'll say one thing. I firmly believe that the world as it is right now is not geared for boys to succeed or to thrive. It isn't. There was a time when boys had it great, and now is a time when boys, it's like the system is against them thriving. It is an environment whereby now, if you're a parent of a boy, you need to set them up for success. They need to know what is out there. You need to prepare them, program them. They need to know how to approach certain things, whether it is, the parenting we're talking about, whether it is dating, whether it is academic success, whether it is business. You need to start putting that stuff at the back of their head. You may not put lectures and whatever, but you have to start programming them early. They need to see it coming.
Just hold on to that point. I want you to, before we get to the how do we prepare them? You've said something very profound, and I'm hearing it for the first time. And it's very interesting even for the viewers who will be listening. You have said the world has changed, and they have not been prepared. Is this by design or circumstance, or what? And then just expound a little bit on that, on what is not right now.
I'll give an example. With ladies, for example, I'm sure even as you used to chill with your mom, or your mom used to chill with her mom, or as the three of you used to chill in a room, ladies tend to give each other a lot of information. A lady will be prepared for marriage, life at work. She'll have a lot of background to work with.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately for men, our fathers do not really want to tell us the good or the bad of life. They don't tell you. So by the time you get into a certain age and you're dealing with unexpected stresses in this life, sometimes you say, I wish my dad could have told me these things. But your dad probably didn't tell you because he was also dealing with those stresses, Men do not like, I think it's a question of trying to communicate weakness. You don't want to look weak in front of your children and whatever. But ladies will say, unajua mwanaume anakwanga hivi, kunakwanga na hivi, anakusumbua.
So she's prepared.
She's mentally prepared. When she gets like into a marriage situation or a work situation, she's ready. For boys, the rules are, work hard, you are the leader, whatever, but nobody tells you about what is the flip side of this. So it is a situation whereby we find that our poor boys start this world very naive. You come out and the world is waiting to eat you. And by the time you get your bearing, you become a very hard person because you've learned too fast. You cooked too quickly. So I think what we need to do is, again, be very deliberate in our discussion with our boys. In the same way you'll tell girls, don't get pregnant, whatever. Even tell boys. Boys, you need to do certain things.
Yes.
If you're dating, what is dating? There's what you will accept. They'll say, sometimes don't just chase girls for the sake of chasing. Don't chase money for the sake of this. Have a long-term view. You see, these are the things which, if someone starts hearing them early enough, it becomes part of their makeup. And I try that with mine.
Yeah.
I try that because I tell them, look, if you're looking at doing this, plan for this. You ask them, okay, what are you looking at as a career? You want to do 1, 2, 3. Tell them, fine. So even the choices you're making in terms of academics, start focusing on this. We need to see more on that. You have to show them that life is a marathon.
Yeah.
And they have to be prepared for it. So I think these are the kind of things which would actually set them up and prepare them to do better in life.
Yeah, I think that's a take home. That for me, where and it's deep, and it's really putting me in thought on we're not preparing them enough of what is coming, and then they get to that stage because every one of them is in a stage or a season, and they don't know what to do or what to expect.
We have every man out here gets disoriented at some point because we'll find. Let's not even talk about drugs.
Yeah.
Let's even talk about professional men.
Yeah.
Unapata jamaa ametoka, maybe his life isn't going so well, maybe work is not going the way he'd have expected, maybe his business is not doing so well. This is a guy who's not prepared that life can, go the way it will go. You might have problems in the home. You're not mentally prepared for the challenges you might have as a husband, as a father. You're not ready. You choose shock. That is why you find a lot of men, turning to alcohol, for example. You find every man, okay, I'll not say every man, you find people are having affairs and all that. It's because they were not ready for what life hit them with.
Usifanye hawa boys waanze kusema it's okay to have affairs.
No. By the way, just a word of caution to the boys. I don't want to be those harsh guys who tell you, panga maisha hivi ama hivi. But the fact is, affairs are a lot of work. This whole cheating thing, it's a lot of work. And one message which I would give to the boys out there, just plan your life. Because there are things which will always be there. Even if you're looking at relationships, you can date at whatever age, you'll be fine at whatever age, but the real test of who you are is what investment you've put in your own life. So don't be in a hurry for some of these things. Focus on the big things. You want to date, trust me, when you're successful, your problem will be who you want to date. But don't stress yourself. Just focus on building yourself. When you build yourself as a man of value, the world comes to you.
Yeah. And I don't want to assume a point we spoke about on what we have assumed to teach our boys,
yes.
And then they come face to face with some of these harsh realities. So could it also be that when this happens, that's why we are seeing a lot of mental health issues right
yes.
now? And for a very long time, we have always told the boys, man up, man up. And mental health is a big issue right now, where they're not, the boys, the men, are not able to manage perhaps the pressure of the expectations.
Yes.
And they're just breaking down.
It's again, I think it's a question of the support structures. Because, for example, if something stressed you today, I'm sure before the end of the day you will call your sister or your girlfriend and tell her, kuna kitu nimeona leo, honestly, imeni stress, and you unburden yourself.
Yeah.
For men, the funny thing is that you'll be going through something, and the day when you are in a point of weakness and you tell your friend, by the way, I'm dealing with this now, he'll tell you, by the way, I was dealing with this 2 years ago. Men do not share because they feel that it makes them look weaker.
Does it?
In some ways it does.
For you as a man.
For me.
Would you, just as a man, and any other man, for example, is it a weakness? Would you, for example, Steve, go to someone and say, look, I don't know how to deal with this anymore? Or it could be work-related, it could be family, where you have conflict with your father, for example, or your wife, or a friend, whatever the case. And you don't know how to deal with it. Is it so easy, or how hard is it for you or that man to go out? Because as you rightfully put it, the moment my problem comes to me, there's a phone call I am making.
Correct. There's someone who you can vent to. I believe for men, I think the rules are a bit different.
Yeah.
Because the world is not kind to a man who appears weak. The world is very unkind. So, for example, if I'm dealing with something which is very heavy, personally, there may be 1 or 2 people I'll talk to.
Yeah.
Literally 1 or 2. Because there are people who, I would say, we understand each other. And typically it would be someone around my age, someone under my same circumstances. That one I'll talk to. But you see, again, I think also as men we have this problem. Let's say if you have problems with a relationship, you will not disclose that to a young man because you're like, unaweza ukaambia huyu kitu, the guy will stay single forever.
Yeah.
And if you talk to the older men don't want to talk to you because they're like, probably the same reason, I don't know. So I think for men, we just need to have our trusted allies. And again, it can't be everybody. Because again, for men are like wolves. You show weakness, so
capitalize on it.
They'll tear you apart. Yeah. So I say, for a man, have those people you trust who you can talk to. As a father, my approach is always this. I do not try to show my kids I'm a superman. And if I can mention where I got that from. When I was a kid, because my dad used to live in another town, government employees. Yeah. So my dad used to religiously come every weekend. But if you're looking at during the week, I was there with my mom. So, okay, we were there. Yeah. So I come from a house of boys, brothers and sons. So I remember whenever I used to ask my mom, what does this word mean? My mom sometimes used to look at me and say, get the dictionary. Get the dictionary, we look at it and she says, now we both know what it means. Yeah. For me, it served 2 things. 1, she showed me where to get the answers. And 2, she never pretended to know everything. So maybe there was a word I came up with that day, she's like, okay, this one, I don't know what it means. And even for me with my children, I don't try to show them that I'm a superhero. You have answers
to everything, or you have everything figured out.
Yeah, and I also allow them to not be strong. Like you tell them, hey, Bana, there was a day I was running, I think I got chased by a dog, I felt chasing it, You tell them that, they laugh. But you see now, out of that, even when they're facing a challenge, they will tell you because you've already shown them how to share. But if you don't show them how to talk to you, they will behave the way you have taught them.
You know, society puts a lot of pressure on boys. I don't know whether it's our society, which is the African society, but when a child is born and it's a girl, the girl is raised under certain conditions. You know, she's nurtured, she's held warmly, she's taught what you say. You know, she learns how to cook and to clean and to wash, because ultimately that's what she will be, because she'll be a mother, or the society hopes that she'll be a mother. Boys, on the other hand, have been told to always man up, you know, and then other than just manning up, the expectation the society has put on this boy is you will be the head of a home, you're going to have your own children, you're going to pay bills, but more than that, we're Africans, and therefore the parents depend on him when he grows up, and it's all so much, and because he wants to do it, because that's what is expected of me, it becomes so overwhelming, you know, sometimes, and they decide, you know what, they drop it, and then they drop everything. You know, I don't even care anymore. So do we need to reduce the expectations on the boy child? But then again, if you don't, how are we, what are we raising them to be?
No, I believe that expectations are good, because if you expect little of someone, you'll get nothing from them. Because again, where would we be if as a society we do not expect greatness from the men who are there? Because in as much as we say, yes, we may say girl child, now there's too much focus on her, but at the end of the day, the society really is, you know, the men, most societies globally are defined by the men who are there. It is a male-oriented society. So my take is this: we should not reduce the kind of expectations we have on boys. What we should teach them is how to manage those expectations. And I would say the first one, like for myself, how I do it, I just need to show them, if I'm breaking my back to get things done, I need to show them that is what men do. I'll tell them that is how men live. I won't tell them to take it easy. I'll tell them, mwanaume ni kujitahidi. Mwanaume ni effort, and that's the thing. Mwanaume ni nini ni effort, and you don't tell them, you do it. And whatever you do, you'll find that they will mirror. Second of all, I think we're in a world where we have enough access to information. We need to show them how to manage that pressure. If like for example, and I'm sure a lot of people have this, we have our children who have too many devices, too many options. So I look at it and I say, you know, my guys like the house too much. I want them out. So I tell them, no, guys, you need to take up an activity like a sport. And I tell them, you need to learn how to network with people. You need to know how to play in a team. You need to be in good health. And I tell them, pick a sport. They pick it, and I make sure they're there. Because again, that is how they will learn, you know, how to be healthy and whatever. We need to practically teach them how to do it. Boys are very task-oriented. If you tell them, do 1, 2, 3, they can write 1, 2, 3, and they'll do it every day. So we need to show them practically how it is done. If I can give...
who is showing them practically how it is done? We are speaking to you and you're a father.
Yes.
Steve, there are certain homes where the father is missing for whatever reason.
Yes.
Are we saying the mother needs to step up, or the society needs to step up? And here in this space, we majorly are speaking to boys.
Yes.
And we are saying there's proper hand holding for the girls, and that's fine. But then the boys sort of are left to wing it, you know.
Yes.
And unfortunately, if there is no father, must we bring in a father figure? Must there be a father figure? Do we tell them what they need to do, or do they become the person they are by looking at their father?
I believe, this is just my personal thought, boys need a man to look at.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be their father, because the father may not be there for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
The father could be, you know, lost through death, or the father could be totally irresponsible. But they need an individual who looks like a man, who they can at least focus on and say, this is what I think I'm working with. And in African culture, I don't think, there was never a child without a father so much. Because even if you're going for a wedding, typically there's a mother and a father to give away.
Yeah.
If you are from outside, you may not know that that is an uncle. That might be the grandfather's brother, but there'll always be a man there. There'll always be a woman there. Even if the mother is not there, there'll be an aunt, a cousin, whatever to the mother. So there'll always be representation. So, and again, this is just my personal thought, because you'll always find that past a certain age, boys are very hard for mothers to control, because these guys start. It's like an animal that is now coming into itself. They become big men, you know, big muscles, big voices. Yeah. And sometimes the only person who will tell them stop joking around is a man. A man has to tell them stop it. They will listen to a man because on some level, like, boys are like wolves. Men are like wolves. They will always give respect to the alpha. And of course, you'll find your mom is nice. And so, you know, at some point you overcome her. Yeah. So they always, ideally there should be a father. It doesn't have to be your father, because you might have a father who is not so great. Yeah. But ideally, there should be a man you can look at and say, you know, I could learn one or two things from there.
Yeah, but also I'd like to say, you know, in the absence of even the father figure, I think there are times mothers man up, and when they man up, they sort of fit into the space. And I want to just speak to the boys and say, look, it doesn't mean that when you don't have a father or a father figure, you become wayward, you know, and say, look, what do I live up to, or who do I look up to, for example, or live for, and therefore I have free will to do whatever I want to. You know, we're also reminding you that you've also got to take it upon yourself to be able to mold you into someone who'll stand up in the society. So under whatever circumstance, for example, that, you know, it could be you listening in and saying, so I'm free to do what I want because, hey, I don't have a father, nobody can stop me. No, you know, internalize and ask yourself, unataka kuaje, unataka kuwa nani ukikuwa mkubwa, you know, do you want to end up, you know, just being a nobody because, well, there was no man in your life. Steve, you're a young parent. You're generally young yourself.
Yes.
And that's a good thing because it makes parenting a bit relatable. But are there things that, despite us being in the current modern ages that we are, but you're using the older style of parenting, perhaps from where your father picked, or not? Or you're rolling with it in modern times?
No, I just think, you know, there are things, there's an age when children cannot reason. Yeah. I don't know if I should use that word. You know, a child and a cat. There's an age when they don't reason, they just can't. You don't tell them don't do this and they won't do it because you cannot explain to them in a way they'll understand. So there's that age when some discipline is required. But there's a point at which now you have a choice between treating them as children and starting to treat them as young men. Yeah. So I think I've done both. When they were two, when they're small, obviously kuchapa hapa na pale because it needs to be done. By now, I believe that is already in them. So from where we move forward, and again, they're my size. At some point, none of these guys can fight me. Yeah. They're huge now. Yeah. So I look at it in terms of, we have gotten to that age where we now prepare them for the world, where we talk to them and we tell them, don't do this, don't do that. But I think also, to some extent, it's easy for me because whatever they're into, I'm into. If it's TikTok, I'm on TikTok. I had to join because of them. If they're on Discord, I'm on Discord. Yeah. Because wherever they go, I follow. If they're listening to music, I'll tell them, put on that music, let me hear it. And if I hear it and it's not good, I'll tell them, that one. Punguza kidogo. Because again, I don't want to bring my biases and lock them out from something which might be useful. So I'll be there.
Are they biases or are they just restrictions that you... Because look at it this way, you could be on TikTok.
Yes.
You could be in all these places that they are in.
Yes.
But you're I don't want to say smart, they are too. Yeah. But you're at our ages, we know very well how to filter out that information that I'm watching.
Correct.
They may not be there. And there's some little level of corruption, you know, in their mind.
Yeah.
I still think it's such a delicate balance. Of course, the boys will be like, you see, allow us. And that's okay, but...
No, the algorithm will always betray you. Let me tell you. Whatever my kids like I've told you, one is into anime, the other one is into certain music. Yeah. I can promise you, the algorithm will fine-tune towards whatever they watch. So whatever I see them watching, I'll know is what they normally watch. It will betray them. Yeah. And like I've said, I will not tell them not to do it. But even if you look at their phone, you'll see what they normally look at. Yeah. So the algorithm will always expose their behavior. But again, I look at it this way. This is a guy who one day you will not be nearby. He'll be in a nice house, God willing, nice job, enough to buy him all the nice electronics and things he wants.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to start streamlining him. And he cannot one day be exposed to all this stuff. You start with him pole pole. Tell him, I'll give you an hour. I'll give you 30 minutes. Do this, then that. And I think as we build that, and you explain to him, tell him, by the way, some of these things, even if he doesn't tell you, tell him these things are there and they're not good. Tell him. If there's something that is in your mind, ask them, by the way, have you heard of this? Test them. Test their reaction and their knowledge. If they know, discuss it with them. Because I think sometimes we are so afraid of our children growing up that we don't want to discuss certain things with them. We're like, oh, he's too young. My friend, he knows. So just tell him, look, this one, like porn, tell them, hey, Bana, some of the funny things on the internet, you tell them, no. Some of these things, they're not helpful. Just tell them, the way guys get addicted to drugs and whatever, even this one can mess you up. So, strictly speaking, don't. If you're talking about something like drinking, like the other day my child was saying, why are you drinking? I told him, first of all, I barely do.
Yeah.
And I told him, but even if I was, I'm old enough to handle it. And I told him, you're not old enough to handle it. So I told him, men at a certain age can drink, but it doesn't mean that they have to drink or overdo it.
Yeah.
So you tell him, look, when you're at the right age, don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Of course, when they ask them what's the right age, I tell them my age.
Yeah.
So now
being
in
the
their
father
40s.
that you are.
No, you tell them in their 40s. You continue in your 40s, when I'll be 50, I'll tell them in my 50s.
At my age.
But the thing is, I don't want them to sneak around and do these things. We just put it on the table and you say, some of these things may be not useful. Or that. And if you say it enough small times,
it registers.
It's back here.
It does.
There's a day when they'll have to make a decision and they'll say, I don't need this.
I think it's you couldn't have put it any better. This is a modern parent. I think today we were speaking to Steve as a modern parent, parenting in modern times and sticking to modern times where open lines of communication, dialogue, compromises, but allowing the children to thrive within the times that we are at now. But that said, it also takes a smart person to be given leeway. If you're given leeway, then you also must use it wisely. You cannot be allowed all these things and then now misuse it and make your parents think they didn't even think, in fact. So when you've been given a leeway to manage your time, please be wise enough to manage your time properly, manage your friendships properly. If you're within homes where your parents are flexible enough to allow you dialogue, bounce off, the issues that worry you. I think ultimately what we're saying is there is no right or wrong way of parenting. What we are striving in this space, Steve, is to raise upright boys. Boys who we will be proud of, boys who will level up to their peers, boys who will hold positions of responsibility that has been assigned to them by the society and the culture that we live in, and just boys who will fit in when the time comes. Because if you're then able to do it around that space, then you've won.
In fact, I can just to come on what you've said. Like for example, yes, I allow my kids stuff like devices and such, but when they act up, again, it's important to know that those things you're given are privileges. Yeah. So if you act up, I'll tell you, okay, let's do this. Let's withdraw these privileges until we balance out what you're doing. Because I don't have to fight with you. The thing is, as long as you're behaving well, these are privileges which you have. Yeah. When you're acting up, I will assume that you're feeling so comfortable that you don't feel you can be. So we take away the privileges. I tell them, if it's your phone, give it to me. Yeah. I'll let you know you can have it back. And sure enough, when someone has time to reflect, and you tell them, I didn't like this because of that, hand over that phone. They'll give it, and I'm telling you, in a day, they'll come back and they'll be more reasonable. So again, this is just life. Because if you're organized and focused in your life, life will give you things. But if you mess up in this life, life will take away those things. You'll have a nice house, you'll have a nice car, you'll have a nice whatever. Ukiblanda, life will take them away from you, and it will be more unkind than your parents taking these things from you. So these little lessons you have when you're at home, these are lessons as to how life will treat you. Act right, life gives you things. You act up, life will take them away. And unfortunately, life is not your parent, it may not give them back. So always try and do things the right way.
Life is not your parents. You've had it. You've had it from Steve. And Steve, just give us a parting shot. A culmination of the whole conversation that we've had today. So not specifically, well, specifically to your children, but just generally to the boys. What would be your future aspiration for this generation, for the next generation who's your children, and that age bracket?
I think what I look forward to, and I'll just tell all the boys here now, you're living in a time where you're literally as good as anyone in the world. When we were young, we knew very little. I think we had one TV station. I think we had just got a second one. There were no FM stations. It was just KBC radio. We had nothing. But now you have access to so much knowledge, so much information, so much ability to thrive. So I would say, as you're growing up in this world, please don't aim low. Don't be those guys who are like, like on a mama or something. That is aiming low. You're as good as anyone in this world. It's an even playing field. You have access to the internet, you have access to knowledge. So what I'd really aspire our children to, and I'm speaking to all the boys here, there's nothing that stops you achieving greatness. And not only that, you have tools that probably previous generations did not have. We did not know about mental illness, we didn't know about mental health, we did not know about physical fitness. You guys have access to all these things. We did not have access, to free courses online. You guys have access to all of this. So I firmly believe, if you are to leverage what you have in your hands, all the information and the access you have, you could be the most successful generation. Please, please, please don't let us down. We're depending on you.
Thank you. Don't let us down. It's important to internalize your challenges, but also create solutions out of them. We've always talked about, I think in these episodes, we've always talked about the negative effects of technology and social media. But again, today we've heard that you could actually use them to turn around your life. You could use them to seek solutions to some of the problems that you think you may be facing. Again, you could use them to relate. Maybe other people are going through them and how they overcame them. Sometimes you may not have maybe the family or a space to reach out to, but there's a whole family in that social space which you guys hang around, and therefore go out and turn this into solutions for what you're going through. Because we've said at the end of the day, hatutashinda tukilia, these girls are much higher than we are, then do whatever it takes, whatever right that it takes, and there's all the solutions there. So I think that's really important for us to know. I'm happy we got a chance to speak to Steve, who's a modern dad to teenage sons. Thank you so much, Steve, for being on the show. Thank you, our great audience. Please continue to interact with us on our socials. We are on Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube. Please subscribe to future shows, share them with your friends and family. Write to us. I think we have shared our email address if there's any topic in particular that you'd like us to speak about. But at the same time, we're happy to get your emails, and we're answering them. We are calling. I think I've spoken to quite a number of boys who call me and ask for a solution. We are pairing you with organizations, I think, for example, that can take it a notch higher if it's in terms of counseling. So let's remain interactive. Watch the videos, tell us what you think about the videos, and let's keep at it. So thank you so much, and until next time, God bless.